We're recording in the daytime.
We are.
This is weird.
It's very unusual for us. I'm on my lunch hour. So,
Yeah, well, as am I.
so if
Anything could happen.
if this goes over an hour, you might hear our voices change significantly halfway through, and like an odd bit of music just be put in there.
But it's usually really, really dark when we record as well, so it's really weird that it's very, very light and that people are like going past the window. I keep thinking the postman's going to come as well any second, so it's going to be very different.
We'll keep that in if it does.
Top 10 TV
Top 10 TV.
of 2024.
Let's find out what Mark's forgotten he watched this year.
Yes, this is the top 10 where I have watched a lot of things and you have not watched a lot of things, traditionally.
I was really, really like scrambling to finish off series that I'd enjoyed but like not quite finished. I looked about November and I was on like 8 shows that I could really want to talk about. And I'm quite happy with my list. Like, but yeah, you watch a lot more TV than me. I think that yours will be a far superior list to mine.
I don't think so. I'm really struggled with my list, not because of the quality of the shows that are out this year. I keep seeing loads of things, like all in the news. There's a TV in 2024 was terrible. That's total rubbish. It's so wrong. There were so many good things, and there were so many good things that I've got an honourable mentions list, and I've moved my list around a lot, and I'm not particularly happy with it. But it's a list, so there we go.
So if this is the first time you've listened to one of our lists, we go through them 10 to 1, taking it in turns. And if we have seen something and we've both seen it, we'll both kind of give each other a look. And if it appears higher up on someone else's list, we'll kind of pause that and come back to it later on.
I think we might have more of that sort of stuff on this list than we did on our top films.
Okay, I'm not sure.
That's
I'm
my
not
gut.
sure.
That's my gut. Oh well, we'll go for
I'm
it
not sure
anyway.
you've finished many of mine.
Okay,
so, yeah.
interesting. Do you want to go first or shall I?
I'll go first.
Okay. In at 10.
My number 10 is the 4th season of Race Across the World.
Okay, so I watched that with you, but it's not on my list.
Okay. I think this is the best season since season 1. If people haven't seen this is where you get a number of pairs of people. Now, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're family, sometimes they are married couples or couples in a relationship. They start off at a point and they need to get to another point in the world, hitting checkpoints around in different countries, and their budget is only the price of an airfare, but they're not allowed to use planes.
And they don't have phones.
Don't have phones.
They've got a map that they keep losing.
Oddly,
why would you lose them? Don't lose the map.
Just buy a map.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, buy. That's what we were saying at one point. Because they did seem to lose it quite a lot. Just buy another one. Maybe that's not allowed. Maybe you're only allowed to have that one map.
who knows?
But this year they also left things on like buses and stuff as well. There was a lot of leaving things behind.
Yeah. This one went from Japan to Indonesia, and I think the thing I liked it for the first time in a few series, there was such vast differences between the countries as people went between them, as people, as they're traveling through Eastern and South Asia. At some points, people in really rural communities. At some points, people are in absolutely built-up metropolises. And previous, the first series going from London to Singapore was probably absolutely blew my mind, like just how that worked and how that went. But I feel this previous series, when they're going across Canada, okay, there was rural, there was built up, but it was all Canada.
We're still in Canada.
There's a lot of snow and a lot of hitchhiking.
Here's a bear.
Yeah, here is a bear. Run away from the bear. I absolutely fell in love with most of the couples on there, but a special shout out to Owen and Alfie, who were just some friends who just seemed like really nice lads. And then James and Betty, who brother and sister from Leeds, so around my area, and just it seems like they'd kind of drifted apart in life, but really, really connected. And the beauty of this show, as well as seeing the places and seeing how people get from place to place, do they take the cheaper transport that takes a longer amount of time, or do they splurge out on a taxi just to get them there in a couple of hours? Is seeing the people reconnect and the connections that's made between these people, as well as made between the friends on the show as well. This show tends to have like a reunion special at the end, and it's really nice just to see people interact with each other at the end. And see how they've been. It's almost like at the Bake Off when they do that.
Yes. What's happened
Contestant
next?
A
Yeah.
and D have been on holiday together and
Yes.
things like that. It's lovely. I still haven't finished the second Celebrity Race Across the World.
No, I didn't go back to it.
I think I probably will at some point.
I still don't know who won.
No, and that's the advantage, isn't
Yeah.
it? But yeah, such a good show, and really not talked about enough. I think it's just kind of got really strong fan base, but just kind of on the down low.
My number 10 is Agatha All Along.
Okay. This was the show that I finished for last a couple of days before the new year, just to see if it was on the list. It's not on my list.
Okay. This, I wasn't really keen on watching it. I'm not really into witches and witchcraft, and I knew that's what it would all be about because Agatha's a witch. I thought she was really good in WandaVision. I thought she was a really interesting character, but very much sort of like a side character in WandaVision, and so it just wasn't on my list. And I think there have been, especially with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Did I get that right?
That's right. That's what it's called.
So even I was like thinking, what's that called? I just didn't. And I know you liked the one about the Archer. What's that one?
Hawkeye.
That's it. You like that one, and you said because it was set around Christmas. There was the fun bit at the beginning about the musical, which you're still singing the song of. So those sorts of things maybe tempted me back, but I thought, you know what, I'll just give it a go. And someone had said that there was a bit of a takeoff of all of those really dreary crime thrillers that I love. Like the one with Kate Winslet. What was that one?
Mare of Easttown.
Mare of Easttown. So those sorts of things. And there was a bit of a takeoff of it in the first episode. And I thought, oh, well, I like stuff like that. And I did. I really liked it. But then I started, as I got through the next few episodes, I started thinking, oh, I wish we were back at that sort of satirical Mare of Easttown crime thriller thing they were doing at the beginning. I kind of missed that being the show. Anyway, carried on with it. And it totally turned around for me. There are certain episodes in this show that I won't forget because they were so beautifully plotted. It was character driven. I fell in love with the witches, with the characters. It deserves and it pays you back if you go back and watch it, because I have been watching in the background while you've been watching it for the first time. I've sort of had my laptop on, and I have noticed so much that wasn't there on a first watch that gave me great pleasure to be laughing away in the corner or just sort of nodding or not saying anything, going, wow, that is, they have set that up from the beginning. But when I first came to it, I didn't see it at all. And I was like, why am I even bothering with this? I might not even press, play for the next episode. I really recommend it. It is not what you think it is. I wasn't a fan of the ending. That's one of the reasons why it's down on, sort of at 10. I found the ending a little bit clunky, but the rest of it, it was lovely. I loved it.
I got into this late, like I say. I didn't have much interest in watching it, which is probably a damnation of what Disney have done to the MCU TV shows, because normally these will be day one watches, especially when there is the link to WandaVision, which I think is kind of the high point of the MCU TV shows. I heard people on a podcast say that this had massive consequences for the MCU and absolute game-changing revelations. I'll tell you now, it didn't, and therefore might have been built up.
Okay.
There's a lot of did you watch Lock and Key on Netflix and things like that?
No.
That was what it felt like to me.
Okay.
It felt like a little bit Adventure of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the cast are brilliant. I think Joe Locke does a really good job as Teen. Catherine Hayne obviously is brilliant. And then the Coven of Witches, I thought they all brought something to the show. Aubrey Plaza makes an appearance, and I love Aubrey Plaza and everything that she does.
The show,
yeah,
quite frankly,
almost to the point where it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But it didn't interest me, and I carried on just to see if there was anything else in there, because I was halfway through. But yeah, like I say, it's not on my list. I didn't expect anything that I'd seen but not on my list would appear on yours.
Yeah,
that's
there we go.
Interesting. My number 9 is a mini-series that we watched together, and is Boy Bands Forever.
Yay! I was going to have that on my top 10, but I couldn't make it in.
Okay. I mean, we've just talked about this on our last episode.
We have.
Our last TV episode.
I've
and
talked about it everywhere. I've talked about it on all podcasts I've been on recently.
You've got the book that's by one of the contributors to the documentary,
Michael Craggs,
and which I'm keen to read after you've finished. But you are so keen on talking to me about it.
It's amazing. It's called Reach for the Stars. If you haven't seen it, bought it, got it out the library, go and get it. It is fascinating. There are stories about the 2000s pop careers of people that you know that will make your jaw drop on the floor, but also revelations that give context to what, you know, if you were thinking someone was a bit of an arsehole, you then get the context behind why they probably weren't and why you were probably the arsehole and the things that they were having to go through and the way they were being manipulated. It's got some really good information about the production of music as well and who was making the songs and songs that were meant to go to certain people but then didn't, you know, like I'm doing now. I come downstairs once I've read a chapter and then I just tell Mark you'll never believe what happens here. And that's what Boy Bands Forever did, I thought, to bring it back to the TV show.
Like watching a TV show with a child that's already seen it.
That's right. That's
just
me.
Shouting out spoilers at me.
Yeah. But that's what it replicates, I think.
Yes.
And I think that's why Michael Craggs was a contributor, because you are getting this insight into the world of the boy bands.
And an absolute companion piece to Better Man, I think. Robbie Williams features heavily in Boy Bands Forever.
It does
kind of
actually,
a star
doesn't it?
turn. And when I was watching Better Man, which didn't make my top 10 films of the year, spoilers if you've not listened to that yet, but I was constantly referencing the documentary that we'd just seen. So interesting timing, but it really, really works.
And there will be a Girl Bands Forever coming out because it was so popular, and I think it really made people think about and reassess how we produce pop stars in this country and the long-term impact on the things that they have to go through as young men, and now they're going to look at young women.
What do you think is going to be the band that they make out to be far bigger than they actually were?
Oh,
I reckon it's going to be the Honeys.
I don't want to go down that line because what's interesting is, why do certain bands not do as well as others? There's a big element in there, and I think that it really I think a few months ago I would have come back to you with another name, and I would have been like pulling out, God, I can't even remember, Girl Thing, you know, like I'd be pulling out girl bands' names. But having read the book and also having seen this documentary, I feel I'm reflecting more on my opinions and the way that I view young people who've been put in a very difficult position. So yeah, I'm not going to throw one back at you.
Probably Hepburn then.
I like Hepburn.
I Quit is a brilliant song.
It is.
And Bugs, despite it being a rip-off of the opening riff of Smells Like Teen Spirit, is all right. What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Mr. McMahon.
Okay, we can pause that for a little bit.
Oh, can we? Is it coming back?
It's coming back.
Wow, our first one. Okay. So your number 8 then?
My number 8, and I don't think you finished this show, is Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
No, didn't finish it. Really should. Need to find some time to go back to it.
A reboot of the Doug Liman film from 2005. This is far better than it has any right to be. The story of two people who are put together as a relationship to become hitmen. So slightly different from it's almost like it. I kind of wish it wasn't called Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because I think it's so much better and a better concept than the film that it is based off. But probably got funding and probably got an Amazon deal through this. I'm a huge fan of Donald Glover, who plays one part of the couple, and ever since Community, and he is obviously brilliant in it because he's brilliant in so many things. But I'd never seen Maya Erskine in anything, and she absolutely holds her own in this. To absolutely key member, and I'm really keen to see her in another show, because I believe this is going to be a show where the next series is going to be concentrating on a different couple doing the same thing.
And it's hard to go up against someone like Donald Glover because he's such a presence.
Yes, yeah. I mean, beautifully shot, amazing guest stars, and one of the all-time great TV houses where you just look at it and go, I would quite like to live there, please.
Yeah.
Or make our house into that house.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live in New York, but yeah. I'd really recommend anyone to check it out. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's so good. The relationship between them is so well painted. There's decent action. There's decent sort of unfolding of missions that they're sent on, but the narrative that goes through it all the way is really well painted.
My number 8 is Rivals.
We can pause that one as well.
Excellent.
This is telling that you've seen more TV than me. My number 7. I'm surprised this is this low.
Okay.
But this is season 3 of The Bear.
Oh, okay. Well, I will not be talking about The Bear.
Funny
As
that.
people who've listened to the podcast for a long time will know I have not seen The Bear.
This was a transitional season, which I think is why it's so low. First season is establishing the characters and taking the beef restaurant and taking a top-class chef and putting him in there. At the end of that, they decide to open a fine dining restaurant, and that is season 2 is the creation of The Bear. Season 3, The Bear is now open, and they are establishing it and trying to get a reputation for it. And very much by definition, that was a transitional season, because season 4 is coming up and is being filmed at the minute, and I'm very excited about that. But we just kind of needed to reset. We have some brilliant episodes that go on, some real exploration of the characters and the background to them, some great flashbacks, and some really interesting episodes that I'd be interested in your opinion on, especially. You're never going to watch this, so
Nope.
It's irrelevant. There's a lot of stress in this. There's a lot of anxiety in this. The guest stars continue to be associated with this to the point where it's almost like who's going to come next. And there is one instance of this where there is a guest star that completely took me out of the show.
I was about to say, does that not sort of do something for you where you go, oh, here's another one?
I think in most cases they're brilliantly cast. I think there is one who makes a small appearance as part of there's kind of an expanding family that appears in the show, and he's one of the brothers. And if you've seen it, you probably know who I'm talking about. And it's someone who I have a lot of time for. But yeah, absolutely took me out. Was a poor decision for me. But yeah, lower than season 1. Well, season 1 I forgot was the first show that I forgot I watched. Season 2 I think was top of my list last year, or very, very close to it. But season 3, it's lower down, but it's still a recommendation because it's still excellent piece of filmmaking.
And then waiting for season 4 as well and see what happens there.
June this year, apparently.
So my number 7 is definitely not a show that you've watched, because I've only watched it in like the last couple of weeks, and it's because it was getting so much critical acclaim. It's a New Zealand show. It's a drama series co-created by Robin Malcolm, who is an actor who plays the main role of Penny Wilding, who is a teacher. She is married to her husband, played by Peter Mullen, who actually she is in a relationship with in real life. I don't know whether they're married or not, but they are together. They met on another TV show. So, sorry, you look like you're going to say something. What are you going to say?
Does Peter Mullen only appear in New Zealand things?
Yeah, I think he lives there now with her. That's my...
Did they meet on top of the lake?
Yes,
or...
they did.
Oh,
Yeah,
right, okay,
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense then.
Total sense. But so imagine, middle-aged couple, got a daughter, a sort of teenage daughter, very well liked, both teachers in the community, and Penny, played by Robin Malcolm, goes upstairs and sees what she believes to be her husband sexually abusing a teenage boy. And she reacts very strongly to this. She comes downstairs at the party and says, I can't believe what I've just seen you do. And that's the premise of the show, is, has she seen is she right? He goes away for a few years, and the inciting incident is that he then comes back from Scotland. The teenage girl by that point has had a young child, a little boy. She, as the grandmother, has been doing all of the work. All of these things have happened, and she's been living her life quite happily until he comes back. She is convinced that he is a predator. He has not been convicted of anything, and that's where we're taking it. And that's the propulsion throughout the whole show is that she then starts to fall apart, and you can see members of the community take his side. She starts to lose friendship. She acts really impulsively. It is almost like one of these amazing one-woman shows where we are going, oh, Penny, you might be right, but this isn't the right way to do it. Or, oh, Penny, have you have you accused this man and he's innocent? You do find out what happened at the end, so I really enjoyed that. I could not stop watching it. I have to say that it's a challenging piece of television.
As it should be.
As it should be, with the themes, and it does explore the theme of grooming and child sexual abuse. And, that's not giving anything away. It's just that's the theme that it's, what does a predator look like? It goes through all of those things.
Yeah.
But it was phenomenal. The Guardian called it the best piece of acting you will see all year. And at one point, this was much further up my list. The problem that I've got with it, and I'm still a little bit unsure as to why I've just stuck it in at 7, is that I just don't know where to place it because of the bias that I've literally just seen it a couple of weeks ago. And also, I had to, it comes with a really strong trigger warning.
Yes.
Especially because you find yourself rewinding the scene where she thinks she's seen something
just to work out
if
what
she has seen it. So you're watching something that is designed to look like potentially an abuse incident, but also potentially not. And that is very challenging, that you're sitting there watching this. You find yourself watching this going, oh, well, whose hand is where? And who, it is challenging.
And sorry, what was the name of this show?
It's called After the Party.
I'm not sure you mentioned that.
I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
I've just looked up Peter Mullen to work out what it was called so that I could do that if need be.
Yeah, comes with a big old trigger warning, but as a vehicle for a woman acting her socks off, it is absolutely superb, and a compulsive plot and narrative.
Okay. My number 6 is something you haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's the finale of Gavin and Stacey.
Okay, yeah.
A fitting end to one of the shows that I think is probably one of the successes of the iPlayer era. The first series of Gavin and Stacey averaged less than 1 million viewers, and now the finale is getting 19.5 million viewers on Christmas Day. Despite, I don't think James Corden is the most popular person in the world. But him and Ruth Jones have created some amazing characters here, and this just brought everything together. It brought back the people you wanted to see. It brought back the fan favourites. And in the past couple of specials, they have brought in a character called Sonia, played by Laura Aikman. And she plays this absolutely brilliantly as Smithy's new girlfriend that he may or may not be marrying, or may or may not be engaged to at various different points of the show. In the wrong hands, she could be the ultimate bad person. She's not. She's just different to the people, to Smithy and Gavin and Stacey and Nessa. And there are little things that she says where she feels she doesn't have any feeling that she wants to be part of a different world. But that's the beauty of this show, and this show made its name by taking the people from suburban Essex who lived in a middle class house, and then taking the people who lived in Barry, who lived in a small, quiet seaside resort, and the clash of cultures. And as people come together and people drift apart, we do lose that because people become used to each other. Putting in Sonia with her friends who like to take selfies and like to go for bottomless brunch, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it's just not who these people are, and it created that clash of culture. It's so well done. I was crying at the end of it, which it's
like you.
Yeah, it's like me, but it's not a show that I've necessarily cried at before. Probably have. Who am I kidding? But yeah, proper good old fashioned Christmas Day specials, and yeah, I'm highest recommendation from me. Although there's 5 things above it.
My number 6 is Sherwood Series 2, which you won't have seen.
I didn't. No.
Continuing on from the first series, when we got to the end of the first series, I really didn't think it needed anything else. I think I said on the podcast, and I would like that to be the end. A lovely sort of crime drama that has the history of the period of Nottingham, of the closure of industry in Nottingham, and thinking about the mines and the miners, with a present day murder plot going through it as well. It just all seemed to come together, and I thought, right, I can leave these characters here. And when series 2 was announced, I was like, oh no. But was the team are totally vindicated, because it's an absolutely cracking second series, looking at gangs and rivalries, again having this present day criminal plot and a thriller element to it, but also looking at people's history, looking at history of families who were against each other, looking at the history of people who, so for example, there's an adoption storyline, all of these things come back, and then some lovely present day nods, like a family who have a disabled child, and when disabled people are then exposed to things like cuckooing, which is where people who are involved in drugs take over their home and use their so loads of those very, very relevant themes. And even as I'm talking, I'm thinking about another one which is about politicians being abused on the internet. Lots of these things being weaved through, and once again it was just compelling. I didn't know what was going to happen. An absolutely brilliant turn by Lorraine Ashbourne, who plays a character called Daphne Sparrow, which I think is one of the all-time brilliant female characters in this sort of drama. She's a rusty old fish, and she was knocking on my door telling me to buy tickets for the school raffle, I'd be absolutely terrified of her. But sort of like
the money.
Heart of gold, really underneath it all, just wants to do well for her family, just wants her family to be okay, and with a big secret past. So, it's a brilliant show, and I was really pleased that it came back. I kind of want it to come back again. I just want to be with those characters.
Okay. My number 5, I suspect isn't on your list, although it's something we've watched together. And it seems kind of daft to put on, but it's season 2 of The Traitors.
Oh, not daft at all. I had it in my list at one point. It's in my honourable mention.
Okay. This feels like a show that's too big for us not to watch, because we almost didn't. Mm-hmm. Like the first series we knew was on, and we kind of just assumed it was on during the World Cup, I think.
Yeah, I think we rolled our eyes at it and we were like, oh, reality show.
Another game show format, blah, blah, blah. And then season 2 came around, and I think we said, oh, no. I was like, should we watch it? And you were like, nah, no. But
again, you were right.
It has just got into the real soul of the nation, and it feels like it's you move from being like someone who is around all the Love Island hype to then being Traitors.
Yes.
That's where you move on to.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone who's listening to this probably knows what The Traitors is. It is one of the best formats that I've seen of a game show in recent years, but so many great moments that just come out of this. I'm not Paul's mother, but I am Ross's. The worst reaction anyone has ever had to being called a sheep. Film just so happens to be filmed on live TV. Like, can I just ask if I am or I amn't?
And also the fact that people can't spell anyone's names.
Yes.
When the little boards on the table come up, and everyone's written in like chalk the name, and the very distinctive, some of the names.
Would you write the little sorry at the bottom?
Yes, or sorry, or a little heart.
A little heart or a smiley face, just to show.
Sorry.
No, I understand you're playing a game. Yeah.
It's amazing.
That Harry versus Paul face-off was just such riveting TV. The Harry and Molly pseudo. Yes, yeah. We are watching season 3 at the minute. And Yeah, we are at the early stages of it, and can this compete? I'm not sure it
I'm
can,
not sure.
but
I'm not sure
yeah,
it can.
I'm sure they will manufacture some.
I mean,
ways
it's still
that it
very
can.
compelling. We're still watching it there, and actually we've not caught up for a few days. I'm a little bit worried I'm going to get spoiled, but at the moment, that season 2 is just, it really does stick in your mind. All those things that you've said, I can think of more as well. I'm laughing about them, thinking about it, because it's group dynamics. It's just
Yeah.
stick a whole load of people, and it's very diverse, which is what I really love about it. It's not just, you know, when you watch Love Island and you think, oh look, they've put some diversity, and you can see the thought process behind. Oh, we're going to put this person in,
Yeah.
but it's very contrived, and you don't see a wheelchair user in Love Island, you know,
yeah.
that sort of thing. Not that I've seen actually a wheelchair used in the Traitors,
No.
but I'm absolutely convinced that there will be. There is actually quite a lot of disability representation in the Traitors. It is really like you've just walked into a workplace, grabbed a whole load of people, pulled them out and put them in a castle in Scotland. That's how it feels. They feel like colleagues. It really reminds me of if you work in like we do, work in buildings where there are lots and lots of people, hundreds and hundreds of people that you come across, and you've got to work with them, and you've got to do tasks together, but then you'll find yourself being pulled off to, you know, rooms with people to have a conversation with them because they're your mates, and other people you'll just instantly take against if you're me. You know, that's what it, and when I'm watching it, that's what I feel like. I'm like, I did not like Diane. I found Diane to be very challenging to sort of get to grips with. But when everything happened, it was like you find yourself going along with it. You find yourself, oh, it's a character, it's a moment. You know, it's fascinating how you as a viewer, you change your mind as two people, and also how they are relating to each other. You end up thinking yourself, what would I do in that situation? How would I be? Would people like me if they just saw me, you know, being filmed all day? Probably not. You're remaining silent. Don't say anything.
I could get in a lot of trouble by responding to that. You're number 5.
Oh, hang on. I've been so busy thinking about the Traitors. I've been sat back, not looking at my phone. Okay, my number 5 is Black Doves, which I don't think you've watched.
No. I've seen you watch it. I've heard a lot of people talk really highly about it.
I think this is absolutely brilliant. The writing's fabulous. It's got a line of comedy in it as well. So it's a thriller. It's set in London. It's set at Christmas. It's got Keira Knightley as a spy. We know that right from the beginning. Her husband is a government minister. He's rising up the ranks. Could he become prime minister one day? I think he might do. It's one of the series. And then her mate, Ben, played by Ben Whishaw, who's an assassin. And comedy ensues, but also there's a lot of violence. There is threat. There's threat against her family, her children, herself. If you ever want to see Keira Knightley absolutely kicking ass, then this is the show that you want to see. She has like knife skills and kicky leg skills, and you know. And then I haven't even mentioned Sarah Lancashire, who is essentially the M of it all. And it's not MI5, but she plays like the lead character, you know, the person who is behind the scenes pulling all the strings. She is absolutely brilliant. I think it was a role that was meant for a man originally, but it totally works with her. You don't know whether you can trust her. Keira Knightley's character doesn't know whether she can trust her. Is she going to be replaced by someone new and young? But it's this idea of someone being placed with a junior minister within the government who then goes to Home Secretary or Foreign Secretary or Defence, you know, and she rises and she has children with him, and she's there as, you know, a Tory wife. It is that bit I find, like, as a woman as well, really, really fascinating. But it's just so much fun. You're laughing, you're fearful. There are all of the characters around them as well. There's a lot of the other, especially the assassins. They feel like they've come out of John Wick. I've only seen the first John Wick, but I know that there's various people, and the spin-offs, isn't there? There's going to be a spin-off of one of the characters, like the ballerina. So it's those sort of things where you get a tiny bit of them and you're like, oh, I want to know more about them. It is really, really good, and it's not it just wouldn't be my cup of tea. If someone said to me, comedy thriller set in London about some spy, I mean, I've not seen Slow Horses, for example. The comedy element would have put me off. This is so clever. It's just brilliant.
I will definitely check it out if I'm not catching up on TV shows from last year to for this list. Now I've got a bit of time, and I don't know why I didn't just watch that, because I've heard so many good things about it. But
It's an easy watch as well,
Yeah.
I find.
okay, I'll definitely do that. My number 4 is Mr. McMahon.
We're back to Mr. McMahon.
This could have been. I mean, I'm surprised that this is higher on me than you, but I think that's more testament to how many things you've seen
I think
as
that's
opposed to
right.
me.
Yeah.
I wasn't entirely positive on this at the time, because this was a show which went over a lot of ground that I've already know about. It wasn't a revelation to me. I've tried to be objective and think about what this is rather than what an ideal version of this would be for me, because an ideal version of this for me is not going to be on Netflix, is not going to be on the front page, is not going to be capturing so many people like who know I like wrestling said, do you know what, I'm watching that Mr. McMahon because it's on the front page of Netflix now. And it clearly worked. It clearly worked for so many people. And it's a really good insight into an industry and a man that the ramifications of what's revealed in the final episode is still being felt now. However, we've just had a WWE Raw be launched on Netflix.
Yes.
So that did well for them.
And interestingly, when I was watching there's like this, would you call it a cold open, like a promo?
Yeah,
for
there is
it.
I mean, the thing that we watched last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a history piece that was done as part of the big Netflix launch last night, yeah.
And it does that thing where it flicks through lots of old footage and then sometimes pauses on certain characters. Like there was a lot about Andre the Giant, and there was The Rock, and we're pausing on certain people as part of the history. And there was only one tiny, like, quarter of a second flick to McMahon at one point in black and white, like the old school back on telly when it was all black and white, and he was an announcer that I saw in that package. Obviously, I haven't watched it multiple times. He might be in there more. But when I was watching it, I had the documentary in mind, because it was like they were wiping that away and moving on to this new period in their life.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's a barrier with people to wrestling because, I still get asked. It's fake, don't you? Yeah, no, I did think that the thing with undead priests and who are able to fire lightning bolts out of their hands.
But they do talk about in that promo that we've just discussed. They do talk about they put that right at the front now of saying, yes, where it's a narrative, but we are out there in the ring doing wrestling.
Yeah.
It is real in that people. I mean, so real that as the documentary Mr. McMahon showed, people die.
Accidents happen. It's a physical business. Imagine if Game of Thrones was performed on stage live in front of a live audience every week, 52 weeks a year. That's the level it's at, and it's a fascinating industry, and it's a really, really good to see a mainstream insight into it. Of course, it could have gone into more depth and asked more questions, but it wouldn't be on the front page of Netflix if that was what was happening.
No, it wouldn't. And I think it really... I don't know what they went in wanting to do with this, because they were behind this documentary, the McMahons. I don't think they... Do they have the presence of mind to know that what they say and the way that they present themselves may come across differently from what they would want to do? I don't know. But this was a very subtle taking apart of the story. That's what I really liked about this documentary. You could, in the questions they were asking, in the way that they were getting people to reflect on instances that had happened in the past, it revealed their true thoughts on it. And also where, they're clicking to someone going, yeah, that never happened. Or, or of course he wants all the power, that it was fascinating because not everyone was singing from the same hymn sheet, and therefore it exposed the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I often wondered, what do they think about this? And obviously they are still working with Netflix, like,
Mm.
and on the Raw Netflix premiere, Bill Simmons, who was the executive producer of this documentary, sat in the front row and featured on camera.
Yeah.
Alongside the McCulkins, the McCulkins,
The McCulkins.
yes,
Yeah.
the Macaulay Culkin and Kieran Culkin, the McCulkins,
Yeah.
and people who were in things that might be coming up as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I obviously this is making them a lot of money, and from the Netflix deal is making them a lot of money. So I suspect it's a necessary evil, and will drive eyeballs to the products without any doubt. So yeah,
I think it would be really useful for people to watch it before they then, having that knowledge for me makes me feel more empowered to think about the business with open eyes. Let's say I'm just thinking about what I'm saying. I enjoy watching it with you. I think it's a fascinating thing, but I'm glad I've got that information behind, so I don't lionize it. I don't think it's the most amazing thing and I should shove all my money there.
You're not going to be flying to LA to watch WrestleMania anytime soon, then?
No, I'm not.
Fair enough.
My number 4 is We Might Regret This,
Okay.
which is fascinating to me because We Might Regret This is a comedy. And as everyone knows, I am not a comedy person. I have no comedy within me.
I haven't seen this. I definitely will see this.
You need to see it. It really, really reminds me of There She Goes, which is a comedy series, again, BBC, which is what this is, where we're following a family who have a disabled child. This, again, is disability representation because we're following a woman who is a wheelchair user, and she's moved to London to be with her lawyer boyfriend, who is played by Darren, who's always in comedy shows, and I've forgotten his Darren Boyd. So you'll know him. He's really tall. And
Is he on Green Wing?
He was like Smack the Pony. He was in all of those things. Because I don't watch comedy, I don't know whether he was in Green Wing or not, but it's the sort of thing I would imagine him in. And I should say Kyla Harris plays Freya, who is our protagonist, who has moved, like I say, to London to be in Abe's beautiful London house. We'll come back to that in a moment. And she is trying to sort of make a new life for herself. She's getting modelling gigs, which are based on a disability, which is interesting because of what people say around it. So it's where a lot of the comedy comes from.
Yeah.
Abe he's still married but going through a divorce to Sally Phillips.
Oh, okay.
Who plays Jane, his former wife or current wife, who's meant to be his former wife, and he has a young son as well. And again, it's ticking all the boxes for me because it's got disability representation, but also Abe and Jane have had a son who has died as well. So there's a storyline of the grief around a child, what happens to the child that's left behind as well, and then throw into the mix Freya's best mate, Jo, played by Elena Sorrell. I think her name is Sorrell,
Yeah.
Sourel. Throw her into the mix as her friend, but also taking on the role of her PA, her personal assistant. And that's where the title comes from. I think we might regret this in terms of having that relationship with a friend who's also your carer. We might regret this moving in with your boyfriend in a new city. All of those things. And also the other characters as well and what they're doing. It is so well designed. It hits all the buttons, like I say, for me, and that you've got romance, you've got grief, you've got someone who really wants to be an ally. Abe wants to be an ally, but sometimes he says the wrong things to his wheelchair using disabled girlfriend. He's trying to do the right thing, but he doesn't. You can see the way that people also respond to Freya as well. There's lovely things that we have in our life, like when there's no disabled toilet, and there's the line that always reminds, well, we're getting one. We're getting one. Great, that's lovely. But everyone else gets to go to the loo, but the disabled people don't. But you're getting one. Brilliant. All of that comes in. So there's a lot of knowingness for me as the parent of a disabled child going, right, okay, I know about lack of access. I know about how difficult it is to get on a train. I know about, accessibility in the home. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant and really funny as well. Come back to the house. after I watched this, after I went on about it on various podcasts, I then realised that someone I know who lives in London, it's her house
What?
that they used. Because, of course, she has a disabled child. Of course, her house is adapted.
Yes.
So you need the property you're filming in to be adapted for your lead actor and writer
Of course,
to use it. So that absolutely blew my mind. The entire time, you know, when you were talking about like wanting other people's houses, like you know,
Yeah.
saying in
Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the entire time I'm going, God, that house is amazing. Like, what would I? And I was like, even looking up, like, what would a house like that cost? I was like, proper looking it up on the thingy. And yeah, it's someone I know's house. I'm not saying who they are because I don't know if they meant that to be
Yeah.
public,
Yeah.
but how amazing is that? Like, just
Wow.
and it made me love the show even more. You should watch it. It is brilliant.
My number 3 is Rivals.
We're back to Rivals. It's very high for you, isn't it?
I mean, this worked for me on so many levels. Obviously, the adaptation of the Jilly Cooper books, which is one of them things that you always saw in bookshops when I was a kid. There was always
in the library.
Yeah, yeah.
You didn't frequent the library as much as me.
I wasn't there. No, no.
I wasn't
I was walking through probably W.H. Smith to get to the CD section or the computer game section.
I wasn't there.
I wasn't. But yeah, you see it around, and didn't know anything about it, so I didn't know.
You don't know
yeah.
the storyline or anything, do
No,
you?
I didn't know it at all. I don't know what happens in it, although I have seen some spoilers, which are censor for future novels.
Oh, have
which
you? Oh, that's a shame.
you were there when I saw them.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Maybe I already knew them.
Yes. Yeah. In some ways, I mean, this was sold as the most racy TV show.
It's a bonk buster.
In some ways, it was more chaste than I expected it to
Yeah,
be.
me too.
And this is more a story of media rights, which is not what I was expecting when I got in. Alex Hassel as Rupert Campbell Black, like, absolutely steals it as the anti-hero role.
You love him, but you hate him, but you love him, but he's terrible.
He's a cad, but with a heart.
Yeah. He just wants to be loved.
Aidan Turner as Declan, like, completely disappearing into the role. Like, there was a point halfway through where I was like, just forgot it was Aidan Turner,
Yeah.
who is someone who I've seen in other things. He just
Yeah.
appeared as Declan. Bella McLean as Taggy, absolutely someone who was in the last series of Sex Education,
Yes.
and
She was the
just
horsey lady.
kind of outside role, like like such a brilliant and warming character that you are instantly like drawn to, and you see a lot of this through her eyes. Yeah, I am so looking forward to other seasons. One thing I would say about it is there is a scene in episode 4, I believe, about halfway through, which I feel was absolutely not earned.
Yeah.
There is a tough scene with should have been trigger warnings applied to it. I did not feel that was anywhere near earned in the show, and it took me. We took a pause then because I just didn't feel like watching it because it went from a happy joy show into a very serious moment.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but
I think you can do that.
yes.
I don't think the show earned that.
Okay, when you say earned it, what do you mean?
I don't think it was treated with the seriousness that it deserved.
Okay.
In the aftermath and everything, I think it was kind of forgotten about.
Yes, that was the bit I
within
agree
20
with.
minutes.
Yeah, I thought I don't agree that a show like this can't
Oh no, I think it. Yeah.
go into it, but I agree that it was forgotten about. And I would have liked. I mean, I hope it comes back later on.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the aftermath of that scene, which is a sexual assault scene. The aftermath of that scene, you get the feeling that something's going to come of it. You know, you have older women coming and giving words of comfort or words of advice. But then the character for whom this happens to just disappears.
Yeah.
And nothing happens. And maybe that is you can argue it. Maybe that is representative of what happens when something like that happens. People forget about it. People move on. People don't. And I'm not saying about the woman who's the survivor. I'm saying other people just move on. But I agree. It jarred with the rest of the. of
What-
the show.
One more thing just to say on this. You are a vegetarian.
Yeah,
You have made a decision in life not to eat meat.
that's right.
For a long time in my life, I made a decision in my life not to watch Danny Dyer's films and TV shows. And bloody hell, this show turned me around. I'm not going to be watching EastEnders. I'm not going to watch Football Factory or anything else with him in unless I am sure that he is as good and as warm and as brilliant in it.
People have said for years that Danny Dyer is a brilliant actor. There's this quote that I can't remember, but it's someone who's, you know,
It was Harold Pinter.
Is it Pinter? Yeah.
Harold Pinter uses him a lot in things. And during watching this, I saw the trailer for his next film, Marching Powder.
Oh yeah.
And I sighed and went,
come on.
well, you know,
Yeah.
occasionally it's okay just to let go once in a while. But yeah, I'm back on the. I do not watch Danny Dyer films or TV shows aside from this one.
And really looking forward to the next series. Ends on a cliffhanger. Really looking forward to seeing who comes back, who's new to the cast. You know, when you get that second series and you get new people in as well, I think people will be clamouring to be involved in this.
Absolutely. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is True Detective Night Country, which I don't think you've seen.
I saw the first episode. I was kind of interested, but not interested enough to carry on with it, to be perfectly honest.
I think it's had a bit of a renaissance because the cast have been winning lots of things at the Golden Globes, and Jodie Foster in particular.
Yes.
I haven't seen it, but you pick up bits, and it's now back on the Sky, and Sky goes, oh, these are winners, and it's right back at the beginning, so it's sort of tempting people back in. 4th season of True Detective, which is an anthology series that was created by Nick, and I can never get his surname right, but I think it's Nick Pizzolatto. If I don't look at his name, I can actually get it right. Hasn't covered himself in glory with this 4th series. Came out with lots of thoughts about this show that is entirely written, directed, and acted by women.
Yes.
And essentially led a trail of men to make very misogynistic comments about the show. A very successful show, let's say. Very, very successful show. Set in the fictional town of Ennis in Alaska, so you get that very chilly feeling every time you watch it. There's snow, there's polar bears, there's ice, and it follows the disappearance of 8 men who are at a research station. You can imagine then that we're drawing on things like The Thing, the film. We are drawing on Alien. There's a bit of The Shining in there. Lots of isolation, and then you've got Jodie Foster and Carly Reese as the 2 detectives who are trying to find out what's happened. A lot of cultural references to the native people and their stories, but also some really interesting ideas around like environmental issues and concerns, and just there's lots in there with a through line of a murder of a woman coming through, and having 2 women detectives led by Jodie Foster, who is not a nice person in this. She is not your there's a detective we're all going to follow. Jodie Foster herself has called her a Karen. She's just a Karen. She herself is like, she's not a nice woman. She, but again, I think if you're someone who enjoys watching shows where it's not just stereotypes and it's not just tropes, this will be the show for you. It was absolutely brilliant. I was mesmerised.
I really enjoyed the others. Even the second one, which everyone else hated. But it's just not something that I.
It's cold. It's a cold show.
That was yes.
Cold in all senses. It's challenging. It's a challenging cold show, but it's brilliant.
My number 2 is Colin from Accounts season 2.
Oh, there it is.
This could have been so shit. Like, season 1 of this show is really like catnip for me. It's romantic dramedy, I think, is how they do it. You take 2 people, you add a meet cute, you give them a reason to fall for each other, and then you add a cast of characters on the outside for them to interact with, and I'll watch that all day long. And how many times have we seen like really good season ones of those? You know, like Gavin and Stacey going back is like pretty much the same formula of two people, cast of characters, etc., etc. This just works. Like, and I think the reason this works is obviously Harriet Dyer and Patrick Bramwell, who play Ashley and Gordon, are a couple in real life, and so their chemistry is obviously great. And they are also writers, and I suspect they are just exaggerating funny things that happen in their life.
I bet they are.
But it's brilliant. I watched this in a weekend. I was down in London and used to go back to my hotel room and just put on Colin from Accounts for an hour.
You just get a weekend off and you just, go and watch Colin from Accounts.
Could be
Why
visiting
not?
the National Gallery.
Yeah.
Fuck it. I want to see a dog that a dog that's struggling with its mobility. Yeah, I think you would really like this.
I'm sure I would. I will get over the barrier of someday, but I need to do it of my own volition. That's the thing. It's a bit same with The Bear. I need to one day make the decision myself to watch these shows rather than have everyone say to me, "Oh, you'd love that. You'd absolutely love it. Oh, go and watch it." There you go. It's my manifesto.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Eric,
Okay.
which is a show that's written by Abby Morgan, and I love Abby Morgan's writing. I think her memoir, This Is Not a Pity Memoir, which is the greatest title for a memoir, is fascinating. I love all of her work, and I think she's a really interesting writer as well. So I came to this open, but it's an interesting one because the idea is that there is a father who's not a good father. He's played by Benedict Cumberbatch. He is in a really toxic relationship with his wife, who may or may not be having an affair with someone else. And there's a young boy called Edgar, I think he's about 9 years old, and he overhears all these fights. And Benedict Cumberbatch's character works, his name's Vincent. He works at a puppet show that's on telly. It's called Good Day Sunshine or Good Morning Sunshine or something like that. I should know
Not
this.
at all creepy.
Not at all. And actually, it is. I find it quite creepy, but it's a bit like Sesame Street. And I mean, I should say this is set in the 80s in New York.
Okay. It is Sesame Street then.
It is, yeah, exactly. But yeah, and when you watch it, you think so. He's got the puppets and the characters, and he's doing the voices and everything. And Edgar comes to visit the studio, and he says, "Oh, I've come up with a character for your show, Dad," and he's called Eric, and he's this 7-foot blue monster. It looks a little bit like Sully from Monsters Inc., but like with more sort of like, I don't want to say like horror to him, but there's a darkness to this character. Anyway, Vincent is meant to take Edgar. This is very serious. Vincent is meant to take Edgar to school, and he doesn't. Vincent has problems with drink and drugs.
Okay.
He's meant to take Edgar to school. Edgar doesn't make it to school. He is now a missing child. I thought I wouldn't be able to watch this because a child going missing in 1980s New York, which, very sort of reminiscent of the Scorsese films, and Abby Morgan says that she really pulled on that,
Yeah.
is like, whoa, and there's another child that's gone missing. There's, you can sense that there is a horrible child sex abuse thing going on in the background, so you really, really feel the danger for this child. And then you see Vincent and his wife crumple, and you are trying to find out what's happened to this child. And there's a detective character who is also trying to find out. There's a race element because one of the children that's disappeared before is black. He's had no advertising whatsoever. His mum's fighting to get any answers from the police, but of course this is a white family that we're following, and therefore the child gets on the milk cartons and all of that sort of thing. Throw into the mix that Vincent starts seeing Eric in real life. So he appears on the tube, across from him, and he starts talking to him. He's following him in the street. We see him as well. And he is almost like the voice of his conscience, propelling him forward to find his child. And he becomes convinced that if he makes Eric, if he creates this character of Eric, then Edgar will come home. It is a beautiful balance of the supernatural or the sci-fi, it's not sci-fi, but the fantasy and supernatural, and are we seeing what we're seeing, with a very grounded crime drama. The setting's superb. Every corner you just feel like there's someone grotty waiting there. You don't like Vincent as he's a bad dad. He's not good with his child, and also you're scared for Edgar as a child who's gone missing, and knowing that, you know, another child has been missing for a long period of time. It is just brilliant. The characterization is superb. The writing is brilliant. These are people that you would think, I don't have anything in common with them. They are rich people living in New York in, again, a beautiful house with everything at their disposal, working for TV, but you find yourself putting yourself in that position of what would I do there. It's just superb. It has been overlooked, I think, this year. It has not been appearing on the end of year lists. I don't know whether it's because it hit right in the middle of that summer period, or whether it's that combination of his crime, but here's a 7-foot Sully in the middle of it.
It's one of the things that I saw loads of advertisements about at the time, but like you say, I think it's just fallen off people's radar. It's something that I'm interested in. Yeah. Whether I'll go back, I'm not sure. But
it really reminds me. I think go for it. If you're someone who really loves those 1970s Scorsese films, you will love this, and just ignore the fact that one of the characters is seeing a big blue monster. And what is, drumroll, your number one?
My number one's got an apostrophe next to it.
An apostrophe next to it?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Well, because this is my favourite TV show I've seen all year, but I have a lot of misgivings around...
Do you mean an asterisk?
My number one.
Is that how we call
exactly,
it?
Yeah, I've got an apostrophe. Yes, that's not what I meant.
That's why I was actually really confused. Like, does it have apostrophe S? Is it an asterisk?
Yes,
am I getting it wrong?
No. Oh, we're going back to this.
Yeah.
See previous podcast.
I can't say asterisk.
It's an asterisk.
Oh, it's an asterisk. There you go. Does it
asterisk is a little gall
I just can't say it.
Oh, neither of us
I've even got that on the blurb, you know, for the podcast at one point. On one of the things like Apple or something, I say Elaine can't say asterisk.
No, yes, because it's not.
But there's a disclaimer with it.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
I have a lot of issues with processes that were failed to be taken during the production of this TV show. I'm sure you can probably guess what it's. Baby Reindeer. Did you watch Baby Reindeer?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Did you watch it all the way through?
Yeah, watched it all the way through.
Not on your list then?
Yeah, not on my list at all.
Okay.
Didn't stay with me. And I also have concerns around the production.
I mean, yeah, let's shout out now. Like, this absolutely did not go to any length at all to protect the people that it was referencing. And that, I'm sure that no one thought this was going to become as part of the national and international psyche that it was. Like, there was one point where in our local Facebook group, someone posted saying, "Hi, I'm new to the area and looking to meet new men," with a picture of Jessica Gunning.
Yeah.
And that's, for anyone listening, that is not appropriate in a local Facebook group. Please treat it around when the post office opens and closes.
And when you put your bin out.
And what bin it is, especially around Christmas
and have
time.
someone parked in your parking space.
Has anyone seen these youths walking across? One of them's got a hood up. I'm not sure if they're up to no good.
Yes. So
going back to Baby Reindeer, obviously the work of Richard Gadd, who I'm sure wouldn't be amongst the celebrities at Raw on Netflix at the start of the year.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
It came out of nowhere. It obviously hit home. And I think that's down to the writing is excellent on this.
The acting's brilliant.
I mean, Jessica Gunning, which I'd previously seen in, was the show What Remains?
Which is a brilliant crime drama.
A TV show that we watched together when we first got together.
All about an isolated woman. I think she plays isolated women really, really well.
Which is an unfortunate...
to have her, but yeah, she does it well. She does it well.
It's smart, it's funny, and then it turns.
Yeah.
And it becomes
really turns.
Shattering and heartbreaking, while still being able to kind of maintain at least a level of where you are entertaining. I mean, Jessica Gunning rightfully won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Comedy, I think it is, or in a limited. Well, I mean,
it's interesting, isn't it? Just where they've placed it, but yeah.
everyone, I suspect the majority of people who've listened to this will have seen this or at least know about it and have made decisions to watch it or not watch it based on the content, because this does turn halfway through.
It's very hard hitting.
Yeah, but this kind of changed the world for a little bit, and it became so ingrained with with the pop culture of the world. I'm looking forward to what Richard Gadd does next. I just hope that the production of it is more responsible.
I think it's I think it's really, really difficult one. As someone who does research into the ethics of writing about your own life, and I talk a lot about writing about your own life and the things that you should put in place. I think it's difficult. It's hindsight, isn't it? Because you wouldn't ever have believed that people were going to be hunting down people from this show, and not just the Jessica Gunning character, but others as well that were mentioned. But this is perhaps why we don't put "this is a true story" at the front of that. You know, even in memoir and even in other life writing, you will often see writers put a big piece of blurb at the front saying, "This is my recollection. Things have been squeezed together, people have been split apart, created to get," you know, you will put a great big disclaimer, not just legally, but because that's the truth. You can't remember things the way that other people remember, and because it was, and I think, you know, so much has been said about it, but it comes down to, it was presented as this has happened. Then people wanted to find out who these people were.
I think it goes beyond that, though. I mean, I think there are tweets that are lifted exactly from Richard Gadd's unprotected Twitter account, which, if you searched for it in Twitter, you could find exactly who he was responding to. It's, it is. I really hope that it will drive the conversation to understand, because you never know who can pick this up.
I think it will change things.
And and there's a lot of people on the internet who just will tap onto these things and have a lovely old time at other people's expense. And but I say,
still your show of the year.
In isolation, I think this is my favourite show of the year.
Okay.
Despite all the moral misgivings I have around the production of it.
Yeah. My number one is Shogun.
I was about to guess that as well. Yeah, you became obsessed with this for a little while.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And for a show that's like, I think someone said it was like 80% subtitles, like Japanese subtitles. Some of the characters talking Portuguese as well. I mean, I love a historical drama, but usually my historical dramas are very limited to the Tudor period or around the Tudor period. So we might go a little bit earlier to Henry VII, or we might push a little more into the Stuarts. But once we get past sort of like Charles I, I'm out. You know, it's like even Queen Victoria stuff, I'm like, not really that bothered. So feudal Japan has not come on my radar before, and I wouldn't necessarily pick a book up about it or watch a show about it. But this is it's just a superb, I mean, obviously it's number one. It's a superb production. The production values are brilliant. The visuals are brilliant. It's lush. It's vistas that you don't tend to see. It's got a history that I didn't know anything about, and essentially it's, you know, the leader, the shogun has died, leaving the a young son, and so the regents, there are 5 regents, are coming together to lead the land, which is very isolated, and is, I think, only trading with the Portuguese at this point in time. And as you can imagine, some of them want to be leaders, and others are trying to stop that from happening. Into this comes John Blackthorne, who is a English pirate, essentially. He's a trader, in inverted commas, who he lands, he's not meant to, but he lands in Japan, and we see him go from being, as they call him, the Anjin. You know, he's a foreigner.
Yes.
He doesn't understand the culture. He doesn't want to understand the culture. He thinks everyone's a savage and a knave. And, you know, he's very sort of like that at the beginning. And we see him come round to understanding the culture that he finds himself in, and respecting the people who he becomes associated with. And at the beginning, John Blackthorne's played by Cosmo Jarvis, and I really hated him at the beginning. He really reminds me of Tom Hardy, but I thought he was very plummy, very over the top at the beginning, that is clearly been an acting choice, and I have misread it, because as we go through, he changes as a character. We change as we get to know all of the people. And the standout star, and I think she won at the Golden Globes as well, is Anna Sawai as Lady Mariko, who, as a woman in this time period, you know, she is restricted in what she can do, but actually we find out, you know, the power of the women in that era, that they are holding so much power in quiet nods and conversations and whispered, and also the men in charge, you know, Lord Tarananga, for example, who is our lead regent, who we are following. He calls on her as a translator, as someone who can translate between himself and Blackthorn. It's just superb. The narrative is, you would think that, like, what you can do. Okay, he's landed there. There's a fish out of water, but there's the different characters around him. The people die, like random people. Like you're just like, oh my god, you're not going to kill that. Oh, you have. It really. It drives you along to want to know what is going to happen next, because you care for even the worst of the character. You know,
Yeah.
even ones that you go, you are not a good person. You want to see what happens to them, and actually you kind of gutting for them as well. You know, like you really want, you want to see something happen to them as well that might not even be a bad thing. It's fabulous. It didn't need a second series. It really ends. It comes full circle. I hope that the second series, which is clearly going to happen, I hope that the writers don't just follow it on. I hope that they move it forward, that we have different characters. I feel like it's come to an end, but maybe it'll do a Sherwood and really surprise me. It's just brilliant. It is a premiere television.
It's a film. It's a TV show that I really wanted to watch. I don't know if it just hit at the wrong time for me. I was going to ask, should I go back and watch it?
Yes.
Nothing doesn't work on podcast, Tom.
yeah, I do. I know you're not one for a historical drama, and this definitely does not involve electricity, which is your
That's
big
the other thing.
Does
yes.
it have electricity in it? No, it does not. But it's the political. Think of it as Succession,
Yes.
but in feudal Japan.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Right.
The end.
The end.
I have to go back to work now.
See if you can spot where the edit was.
Okay.
Thank you for listening all year. If you have been, I promise to watch some more TV this year and a lot more films.
Mm-hmm.
And you might watch some films at some point.
I will watch some films.
And you'll
at
watch
some
a lot
point.
of telly.
Yeah. I've already watched loads of telly this year. I've already got stuff on my list for next year.
But yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.